Hello! Today I'm going to work on a Zentangle that I sort of have made up, and it is called Nika. Alright. Sometimes you don't have the Zentangle tile, and I want to show you how you can work without the Zentangle tile. You can trace something that's a little square, or you just take a regular piece of paper and make yourself a nice little square right here on your larger piece of paper. What this does is it creates a boundary for us to work within, to where we don't feel like we have to fill up this whole giant entire page. Sometimes a large page can be very overwhelming. So here we go. And I'm going to teach you how to do this using the Zentangle method of drawing. The first thing we usually do in any Zentangle is take our pencil and put 4 tiny dots in the corner of our square or our shape that we're working with. And these are very light dots. They don't have to be dark at all. They're just a guidepost for us. And then between those, we're going to draw some lines. And this will help frame our final design. I invite you to turn your paper. There's always a certain way your hand likes to work. I did not hit my dot there. All right. There's always a certain way your hand likes to work the best. And when we have to take our hand and kind of work sideways or another way, it can be a little distressing. Okay, we're going to start this one with a very loose spiral. So now that we've got our little boundary set, let's move in, grab our marker, and get ready to go. I'm going to start my spiral right here in this corner, and I'm going to leave some space, and it's very, very loose. And I'm going to end there. It's almost like we've made a capital letter G. Next, all the way around this G, we're going to make, I would call this a very loose S curve, or almost like a hook. And I'm going to go around, sort of minding this line that I've put for myself, and I'm going to rotate my paper a little bit each time, but I'm going to bring that curve up to where it hits that top line. So some of them are going to be larger, like this one, and some will be smaller, depending on how much space there is to add it. So I'm making these little hooks all the way around in the same direction, bumping that little boundary that I've made for myself. And it's just a suggestion. If you feel like going up higher, you can, but this helps me keep my design where I want it. So up here, I can get kind of tall because I've got that space. And I'm rotating around. I find also that rotating my paper helps to keep my shapes more uniform. Now I can touch this top, or I can leave a little space. I'm going to go ahead and touch that top part. Come down and around and continue making these nice little hook shapes in this space that we've given ourselves. And this one I can kind of hook around there. All right. So now that we've done that, in each of these, I'm going to come back down and make it into this little shape. So we're going to give it some dimension. So let's do that to each one of them. Each time just enjoying finding that starting point and following that curve that we have already put down. Finding that point, coming up, and it's narrow here, a little wider at the bottom. So come up and around. And continue twirling that paper, because that's going to make it easier for our shapes to be all similar and uniform. If they're not similar and uniform, that's okay. They're going to be so similar at the end that it won't matter if some of them are different. This is a time for you to explore shape, find the way that works best for your hand and your mind to get things done, and then come down. All right, so I'm going to switch back to the original point. And this time, wow, sorry, something fell over there. At this little point, we're going to come down and make, it's almost like a little face. And I want this face to be pretty wide. So we're going to make it like this. And sometimes we don't have as much room to make it wide, and that's okay. I'm going to continue turning my paper. It's almost like a little teardrop shape or a little seed. So let's come down and simply add that to each one. And you may be moving at a faster pace or a slower pace than me. But I want to remind you that this is not a contest. There is no prize for the person who finishes first. This is something I want you to do at the speed that works for you. And enjoy giving your attention to each of these little lines. That's going to help form our pattern. Coming around, and now I'm on my last one. So I'm going to flip back around, and my next step in this pattern is going to be to find that point where we started, and I'm going to do this. So I'm going to find this point where we started and make that little inside part. So we're coming down and swooping up sort of at the last minute. So I'm going to come down and swoop up. Come down and swoop up. Come down and swoop up. A little triangle in there. Come down and swoop up. And I'm giving the same time and attention to each one of these little shapes. So coming down and swoop up. Coming down and up a little bit. Adding this little tiny shape to get where we're going. So that's my last one. And now we're going to pick up where this line leaves off, and we're going to bring it back to where the next one starts. So find the end of this line, and we're going to bring it back to where that next one starts. And you can see that I'm kind of making a little bit of a swoop. So I'm coming down and swooping to meet the next one. So I'm following this top line, swooping down. Top line, skipping over, swooping down. Top line, swooping down. Top line on that inside, and I'm swooping down. Finding my top line and swooping down. So just keep rotating through and making that wonderful little line. So there's your top line. And we're coming down. So here's my top line. Coming down. Here is my top line, and I'm going to come down. Here's my top line, and I'm going to join that one. And top line, coming down. That one's really close. And this one, I don't have anything to join it to, so I have some decisions to make. And I think what I'm going to do is start here and then just come all the way down here. Then we can go back. And our last piece of this little design is going to be to find that bottom line and just make kind of an aura of that line that's already there. So I'm going to find the bottom line and then follow the previous line I made. Some are a little thicker, some are a little thinner, but that's all right. I'm going to keep turning and making that little shape. I'm adding that last piece, and this one's a little bit skinny. That's all right. And then on this one, I'm going to do the same thing where I aura that line around and come down here. So now I've completed this pattern, and we can do a lot of things to shade. We could add color. That is all up to you. What I'm going to do next is add some pattern to some of these other spaces we have. So that will be step 2. What I'm going to add in this one is a lot of little loopy lines, kind of like this. Looks a little bit like a flower. And I'm going to add another little loopy line here. Maybe here. And maybe a tiny one here. And we can decorate this section different than the others. We have these spaces here that we can fill with another pattern if we'd like to. So I think what I'm going to do in this section here is a nice little, I'm going to go off of this line and I'm going to do what's called an aura. So I'm simply going to follow the lines that are already there, and each time I follow a line, I'm going to aura the last one. So that's coming over. That's a lot of fun. And we still have these other spaces where we can do similar things or we can do different things. It's completely up to us. I think what I'm going to do through here is make lines that kind of skip over the places we've already drawn something. So I will, for instance, this one can be on the inside because that's open. We'll come through, and anytime we hit a design that's already there, we're simply going to skip over. So I'll start this one here, come around, and then I think I have room to add one more. It can come through the bottom of some of these and end there. So now we've got some other patterns, and we can even fill in these small little spaces here if we want to. For instance, I can come around and add this line that encompasses the top of all these little pieces we've already drawn. And it doesn't have to particularly be a straight line, but it can. It depends on what you're feeling today. I'm going to make this one loopy because why not? And then we'll come down, just connecting these little top ridges. And this one's going to be fun too. And then I'll rotate one more time and come back to connect all the tops of these ones. And then we're back at our original starting point. Now that you have this down, you can decide how you want to embellish it. I'm going to do a little embellishing on mine, a little bit of shading, a little bit of adding pattern. For instance, in all of these little in-between spaces, you can add patterns, perhaps dots, lines, curves, leaves, all kinds of things. Probably what I'll do in these is make some circles, different sizes of circles. They can be very large, they can be very small. This is one of my favorite space fillers. So I'll add those. And then once I feel like I have enough of those, I'm simply going to color in these in-between spaces. And I don't always enjoy coloring in large spaces, but I love coloring in these very tiny little spaces. I don't know about you. But now I will go into time lapse and I'll show you how I finish out the rest of this. And I invite you to finish it out in whatever way you'd like.